Hey you guys, it's MJ from Alta Love. This morning I felt really inspired to share about the upcoming solstice energy and this great cosmic portal that we're now in. I'm receiving messages about the system and how it's really on its last legs, you could say. And there's a lot of emotional waves, and they're quite paradoxical in nature because even though there's this energy of fighting the system or this anger toward it, further down the line, there's actually a bittersweetness about the end of the Dark Ages and the end of corrupted power on this planet. And so there's a continuing, and this is really important because it brings compassion to the dark, which obviously is the light. So there's a lot of light and love being shone from within, which is continuing the healing process as beings. Great waves of advancement and discovery is happening from within oneself. And as individuals begin to activate their light bodies, this lightness is really being made known. So there's intuitive nudgings happening, even so-called like non-spiritual people or people who have perhaps followed a very conventional path. They're also beginning, and this is obviously part of mass awakening, but this is like their spidey senses are kind of activating, and so there's a sense of now looking around at what's happening, or what these weird spiritual people are doing and saying is suddenly becoming more relevant to more people. So this is fantastic on many levels. Again, I've shared on different platforms about the polarized aspects of this transformational process, that uprising is often a violent endeavor. And this is why anyone on an earth worker, light worker, or, so-called spiritual path, all of this is really important for us to ground into the most loving, compassionate, and light-filled experience to continue to hold the vision of what we call New Earth, which is just a more uplifted state. Some of us might experience this state from within self. This is us living in a paradise ultimately, and with clear vision of anything that doesn't align with that kind of beauty or perfection or cleanup is transformed. So one thing to be aware of with this whole spiritual awakening thing is the intensity of it, and how we do often have to walk away from people, places, or things that are no longer in alignment with our resonance, which is what I talk about in the Fearless Life Guide as a lifelong people pleaser and highly sensitive empath. It's important as empaths to have the courage to step back, create distance, or have separation from any energies or resonances that do not feel in alignment or where there's density. So energies that are tiring, draining, and ultimately what that usually means is that there is some form of manipulation, there's a hook, there's an aspect that is hooking you into lower densities. And again, it's all held with love, and recognize the empath has a responsibility there to break free and to hold space for one's healing, because one's healing is the healing of all. That's the understanding of our one body, one that's, I think it's a Bible quote, one body of Christ. Ultimately, human consciousness is one body of Christ, and anything that isn't aligned with that Christedness or higher dimensional frequencies, then there's a different timeline for that creative aspect. There's a lot of positivity, as well as those, again, extremes. A lot of the worst darkest aspects of our common humanity coming from a past timeline of linearity, that is also being shown to us to maybe trigger more healing and ultimately to rise us out of it. On another note of self-care during this time, really allowing yourself to intuitively be at one with yourself, which how I interpret that is just the way my sleeping patterns have become a lot more erratic, and I've allowed that to happen. It's like 3:30 in the morning. And but you guys know that already. And if I work for 5 or 6 hours and then I'm sleepy, have a nap. It's allowing your own energy to attune to your signature frequency, which obviously doesn't necessarily look like the grid or the old systematic way of everyone needs 8 hours of sleep every night, or this is the optimal time to sleep. What we're reattuning to is more of our circadian rhythm, which is unique to each and every one of us. And ultimately, that's when we tune into our purpose, and that's when we tune into our ultimate channel of genius or infinite potential or infinite intelligence, because we're activating the signature of our total spiritual self or soul self. And that's, merging with the intuition or merging with the higher self. And that's really all that's happening. And we embody this really by ultimately meditation practices are what attuning us to this part of our brain which helps to activate the light body, which is kind of like a miraculous superhero type of thing. And there again, it won't necessarily look like everybody else. I watched a video about Wim Hof, an extraordinary man who's really shining light for humanity to do the impossible, like a superhero, tuning into the cerebral cortex, I believe, and then that's like this deepest part that then transform our subconscious patterning of limitation and allow us to embody those higher frequencies or higher vibrations that are ultimately pioneering us into this new earth, into this higher vibrational reality. And then there's different timelines available for different people as far as their own personal creative life, and also a creative life in the context of a collective. So, for example, All to Love is connecting new earth grids and assisting in kind of bridging more people as they awaken into these new earth portals, so that people can accelerate the shifting process, and we can see the exponential growth during this phase. So the solstice is offering us, and we've been actually in this belt or in this gateway for since I think the 12th of December, and it's sort of like a heightened, suspended portal, quite longer than some others that we've experienced as we've been aware of this shift or been aware of these cosmic gateways and portals. This one in December is ultimately, it's, I keep getting this feeling of like, come on. Like everyone's really being kind of rushed through. Not in a stressy way, actually more in a jovial, oh, it's exciting, what's happening, like lots of awesomeness is happening in our lives. And again, this is something more from the empath perspective, but just trust the intuition. I'm aware in my own reality there's certain energies, i.e. people, where I am being asked, you just let it go, just let go of that person, right? And it seems weird, or it seems like but they're lovely, or but and it's just an intuitive nudging of release of, it could be even the subtlest aspect of non-resonance or manipulation or control. And again, as those of us connected to the intuition this way or connected to this community, it's simply what I'm hearing, it's simply to do with the purity of our consciousness and the purity of our vision with the timeline that we've lived and how we're embodying the truth of our new paradigm. And and that is different for everyone, which is why we're seeing different modalities, healing modalities, and we're also seeing different actual communities being born around the world. There's communities specifically guided to work with men. There's communities specifically guided to work with women. There's communities specifically guided to work on the internet. There's communities specifically guided to different parts of the world in co-creative. And then ultimately what we understand, it's like in Lord of the Rings, how you have those, like, you have different tribes all around. That's similar. So these movements that are being born are essentially the new grid system that's already been anchored in. Because again, this stuff, it's not new to those who have been vibrating it. It's just those of us who are now reaching a certain vibration are now seeing the new. And then I'm aware as a bridge that there's, like, further down in our timeline, disclosure or merging with different galactic beings, what human consciousness would call aliens or extraterrestrials, are ultimately just beings living in a different dimension. Those of us who have unlocked more of our kind of galactic self or connected to our cosmic origins can tune in to where those beings are in our realm, and also perhaps how in different realities those beings will make manifest for us. And then further down the line we can see a civilization of a merged cosmic reality on planet Earth. It's all a part of the advancement, because we're the darkness, we've tapped in, we've tapped into some of the darkest of the dark aspects of creation, which is all part of this chosen human evolution on Earth. And now we're bridging into higher timelines. So it is actually really exciting. And of course, those choosing to bridge into or sustain this lower frequency timeline, that's a conscious choice. Most will flee, though, and I'm hearing Earth will not be destroyed. But it's an understanding as well that there's an ever-flowing destruction and creation process in life force, and it's through this understanding that we can actually rise out of duality. So we might be perceiving duality in and around us, which might be triggering subtle residue layers of our own divisive aspect. And then through those triggers, the more we can ground into love and kind of see it for what it is and, like, hold space, but come back to our unity self, then we can continue to really just live in our flow. And it's so unique to each and every one of us, again, which is why I think I sort of go on and on about watching less and less media if possible, and spending more time and playtime and relax time and self-care time and human connection time as well. And some of you saw yesterday, after Saturday, the energy was really quite deep and like purgatory, like some of these purges and waves coming through. Again, I don't really like the word purge, but it's fine, because it is kind of like that, like purge, like just these waves of energy coming through. And it was so kind of thick and heavy that on Sunday you saw that I was guided to just take a day of rest. And it meant to not feel that, and that's, I suppose that's really important to remember, that we're staying in an intuitive flow in the present moment, that even though we might get into habits and routines, ultimately those habits and routines are a lot less kind of fixed, as in like the system, how we experienced it before, because we can always kind of drift out of it. Not drift, that's not a great expression for it. We can just step out of it and drop into the place where in this present moment we're being guided. So there's some kind of connection to 4 ocean waves. And there's energy coming through. So it feels simply waves, earth, energy. Something to do with the vision I had some days ago about the bottom of the ocean floor and tectonic plates shifting. There's earth continents being divided, not by human consciousness, by earth consciousness. It's almost like the earth is reshaping itself back to its divine placement in the cosmos, which has something to do with the axis tilt and how it sits in placement to the sun and the moon. So there's somehow a connection to the water on the planet, how it's tilted on its axis, and then its connection to sun and moon, and that obviously the tilt is rebalancing to make it more whole in union with sun, moon, solar energies and lunar energies. And then that's what's affecting the deep waves coming through. And tsunami energy is relevant to a lot of like biblical prophecy. Understanding our eternity as well, and this is part of our although having much love, grace, and compassion, but not getting swept up in the media trigger drama of natural disaster. Understanding death is part of life is a way to ground us in, and then feel the emotion, of course. Feel the pain of loss. Because as all of this continues and the uprising continues and certain protests evolve and energetic shifts happen on the planet, ultimately leading to what we call natural disasters, in a much broader divine and cosmic way, there is no mistake in the cosmos, even us, and even as bad as we might perceive things. Again, that's a perception in our duality, in our third dimensional perception. And so as we're rising into these higher frequencies, we can observe with love. Knowing that you are safe here, knowing that you belong here, and knowing that you are a gift. If this resonates with you, it's more than likely you have creative expression to share. And as some of you already are, I just want to remind you, you can reach out, you can book sessions, you can join the Fearless Life Tribe to have a tribe of like minds to share and express to. Ultimately, though, it is, or I would encourage a public expression online. As we activate one another, it's important for us to encourage one another to continue to activate, so that if there's a message coming through you share it, because there's humans in the world that need to hear it. It's not up to us to choose why or the importance. It's simply in our present moment state that we share from the heart. Heart is ultimately what's receiving the divine messages, and it would only be our kind of systematic linear perception, like our ego, people say, of like what's attached to our external world or what we think we want, or that anything really attached to old paradigm, linearity, divide and conquer, blame and attack, control and manipulation, or grandiosity. Anything connected to those aspects is we're still in duality. So we can be aware of them more so by reflection, journaling, meditating, and relaxing. Reflecting and self-study can be a nice theme over these coming days. And then finally, any kind of ceremony or ritual that you're guided to do around the solstice. I mentioned some time ago in one of my shares that I've got a little thing happening for like December 7th. So I've actually kept it. Normally if I like write stuff, I'll do the actual ceremony on the day, but this is new moon, full moon. This is the share obviously around the solstice, but they're all like intertwined. So probably the evening of the solstice into the full moon energy, this would be like a potent locking in, anchoring in, set those intentions and move on those intentions. Maybe light a fire, or sometimes I'll just like I'll have this piece of, I'll have this piece of paper. I'll like read through it. If there's a group of you, or even if there's one other of you, or if it's just you, maybe you share some of it out loud. Maybe you meditate on it. Maybe you sage yourself from past experiences, and then release it, burn it up, throw it in the ocean or sea or whatever. Because in the releasing of it, the intention is done. Hence why we do kind of the ceremony to physicalize, sort of symbolize and represent the trust and the faith in letting go. Interesting. And then I don't even remember writing this. And then, so now on the other side of December 22nd, full moon, it's compassionate leadership and guidance for Earth's new paradigm evolution. And this is the energies that more and more people are going to be vibrating toward. And then that opening through the heart chakra, because that's ultimately what's happening energetically as a human consciousness. It's like we've just been moving out of one frequency into another, dark ages into lighter ages, and that feels in ourself like not feeling and being kind of lower chakra base, lower power over, and you know, sexual corruption and all that, like, which is why we're seeing a lot of this sex trafficking and child trafficking and the Me Too movement. A lot of it obviously is to do with sexual abuse and sexual corruption. So, and there's such a profound thread around that, and I just know that's going to be a part of stuff that I share further down the line for some reason. So, because our sexuality is incredibly important to our aliveness, and we've been disenfranchised, we've been disconnected from the power of our sexuality, and instead we've used sexuality to like power and control and dominate. So that's all transforming now, which is fantastic. So yeah, more looking toward the compassionate leadership, more tuning into heart so that they can actually feel the vibration of people's intention. And then continuing, we have more love, more grace, and systematic changes across the board. And that's everything. Education system, military system. We have a mass exodus of like stormtroopers waking up. I call that in the book, like, just the military, the people still very much invested in the system. We're going to have a mass awakening and exodus in that area. And then Yeah. And then compassionate leadership as well as Native Americans reclaiming their sovereignty and land with support from the awakened people of their country and nations. And then that leadership, that wisdom, so we're unifying and reclaiming, going into this new phase of advanced technology born from within ourselves as the light activated beings in higher frequencies, and then reclaiming earth wisdom through the allowance of a rise of leadership in Native American tradition. But that's everyone. We're all Native essentially. We just forgot and disconnected, hence why we years and years ago slaughtered and nearly wiped them out. That's divide and conquer energy, right? So that's all awesome. And so I'm also hearing, side note, weirdly, we're now seeing the kind of demise or the fall of divisive movements of our past linearity. And this sounds weird for me to say as well, but we're gonna see kind of the end of even things like feminism or sexism. Any ism that is divisive, we can begin to let go of because we're in unity now. Yay! Okay, I think that's it for today. Obviously, I've created this unlisted to stay focused. I find the channeled messages is better for me to stay in presence and just listening so that you guys get the best and most clear channel. I love you loads. I'm going to create some more films for Spirituality Simplified. Don't forget to subscribe if that was enjoyable or if you resonated with it. Feel free to share if you feel that's important to you or other people you know. And head over to altalove.com to subscribe. I really appreciate your guys' subscribes as I continue to build the business to keep sharing and vibing and growing it. Also, feel free to go to Amazon. You can buy the book. You can also buy the book just by emailing teamlove@altalove.com, and I'll post one out to you. Yeah. And then there's Alta Love. I can't be bothered to go get it, but like there's Alta Love t-shirts and hoodies. I really appreciate just if you're connected here. Anything that you buy from Alta Love is a way to kind of keep us going and just ultimately spread the love, spread the movement, you guys. That's what it's about, you know. And that's new paradigm to open our hearts to kind of new movements where there's no invisible shareholders. There's no intention to power over whatsoever. It's purely to create more benevolence in the world, to give more. So yeah, that's it, you guys. I love you loads. Thank you ever so much for being who you are, for choosing your love and choosing your light. And how badass is this? But like ultimately choosing your best life and being alive, feeling and being alive. It's like such a gift, you know, and we're all gifts to one another and we're gifts to ourselves, and the world is changing and it's changing for the better. So yay. Have a beautiful day. I love you guys. Peace, peace, peace. Namaste.